Okay. Excellent. So Jenna, I hope you don't mind. I'm giving you the floor regarding the C and B, and I figured that we could do it much like we did last time. We could just do a run through and everybody can chime in, and hopefully it will stay within order like it did last time. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, to me.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So Jenna, should we just start at the top and just review?
Yes, so nothing was changed in the Constitution. So if everybody had a chance to read over it, if there's any changes that need to be addressed, sections 1 through 4. I mean, other than the name of the club, right? So we added in Inc. Oh, and scent work, sorry. Scent work was added as well.
Is everybody just giving it a quick once over while we're here? I'm happy to pull and just say, you know, Amy, any changes, section 1 through 4, and go around like that. Okay. Randy, any changes?
No.
Nope. Okay. Lane, any changes? Section 1 through 4, Allison has joined.
No.
Lynn, any
No.
changes?
No.
Okay. Amy?
Can you come back to me? I just wanted to make sure that the question I had, I think it was answered somewhere else in here. So can you just come back to me?
Of course, of course.
Okay, thanks.
Eric, do you have any changes? Section 1 through 4.
Nope. No, I do not. I'm sorry, I couldn't get the mute off.
No worries, no worries. And then Allison, putting you on the spot, as you just joined, Jenna asked that we review section 1 through 4, and if there's any changes, she said that the only items that changed were adding the INC, the incorporation, to the name of the club. And Jenna, I'm sorry, I have COVID brain. There was one other change and it suddenly escapes me.
We added scent work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Excellent.
Great. Okay, so
I'm sorry, just a question. Do we want to go through this and make a motion to approve each section as we approve it, or just?
I would say, I mean, we can, or we can
how-
just keep going until there's something we need to modify and then do the modification. But it's up to you guys. However you want to do it is fine with me.
Okay, doesn't matter to me. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, so why don't we just go ahead and vote on the Constitution then, section 1 through 4.
So I'll have to go around. So Allison, you're a yay.
I'm a
But
yay.
we need to make a motion.
Right.
Right. So I motion to accept the revised portion of the C&B Constitution sections 1 through 4 as presented in version 3 of Jenna's document, or of the document.
I'll second.
Third.
Okay, now we need to vote. can't just make a motion without voting. So we have to go around. Allison, yay. Randy, yay.
Yay.
Okay. And Eric, I'm sorry. I'm gonna put your yay on record.
Yep.
Lynn,
Yay.
James.
Yay.
Okay.
Listen,
2, 3, 4.
is that everybody?
Well, Jenna.
Oh,
Yeah, so- yes.
Okay.
No, we need to trash the whole thing. Just kidding.
Well-
Jeez.
Shredder. It's going to the shredder.
here's the thing. Even though this is recorded and I can get all of Amy's motion later, I'd rather not go page by page and make a motion for each page. It's too much.
Okay,
I'd rather go through, if we're gonna change something, we change it, we make, if it's already changed, we keep going.
Okay. I think that's good. And then how about if we just make a motion at the end where we are at the changes, and then if we agree to everything, is that fair?
I'd love it.
Okay. It makes it a little bit more smooth. All right, Jenna, next items, please.
okay, so bylaws, Article 1, membership. I don't believe we made any changes to that other than at the very end of section 1, we scratched out and associate members shall not engage in discussion of a motion on the floor. For section 1.
Yep.
So if everybody's good with section 1, we can move to section 2.
All yays?
Yay.
I have a couple of things. So just under regular membership and lifetime membership, we have in there, in parentheses at the end of each of those, if said member holds an office, blah, blah, blah. That's also repeated in Article 3. So do we need to also have it in this section?
That's what we discussed last time, but it's just covering the bases. So more disclosure is better than under disclosure, in my opinion, but it's whatever you guys want. We actually added it in last time.
Okay, I wasn't privy to the beginning of the call last time, so.
Yeah, no worries.
And then I know in the one of the previous versions I looked at, there was something on junior membership saying that they could become a regular member at 18 upon written request to the board. Do we just now make them reapply as a regular member, or does that provision still exist?
It would be written as it is written now. So, but junior membership is only available to people, persons under 18. So in my mind, they would automatically move to regular membership at that point.
Right. I think one of the previous versions had it spelled out like that. I don't know if we need to do that.
I didn't change anything on this. This is AKC's wording verbatim under junior membership. So I didn't add anything to it. I think maybe that was the previous one.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. I looked at several versions and just made notes on here, not what came from where, so.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Yeah, I
do
think our original one, I think, said something about that, but
So the question at hand is, if a junior is a junior and they turn 18, the stipulation that Amy came across, if I'm understanding correctly, is they must reapply as an adult member. And now,
No.
Oh.
What I came across was it said they may become a regular member at 18 years of age upon written request to the board, because a regular membership holds voting privileges, obviously. and a junior doesn't. So I was just asking for clarification as to whether we wanted to incorporate that language or if the junior membership automatically transfers to a regular membership, or do they need to reapply for a regular membership?
Randy?
I feel if they're a member in good standing, even as a junior, they should be able to just go to the board and say, I'd like to be a regular member. And have the board vote on them at that point.
Why would it be the board, though? Wouldn't it just be the membership as a whole? Because the board doesn't decide who comes on as a member in the club, correct?
Correct.
Stuff, then you can put it to the membership.
So everybody wants juniors to reapply then? Or just we can put verbiage in there that they automatically become? If they're a member in good standing, then they could automatically become a regular member upon turning 18.
Yeah.
I think
makes
that
total-
would,
think
that
total
would make
sense.
sense.
I approve that. I think that's more
Yeah.
Yeah.
practical.
I
That it just
agree.
rolls over to a regular membership
I-
upon turning 18 years of age.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay, so terminology for upon turning 18 to automatically move to regular membership. Obviously, I'll have to come up with better terminology for it, but
Right.
As long as they pay, they're in.
Right,
right?
And
exactly.
they need to tell us that they've had a birthday.
Well,
I mean,
that's on
if-
their application, is it not? And either way, if we put in there that terminology upon turning 18, then yeah, it would be up to them to let us know. But
Yeah.
that to me is automatic.
I think that's a given.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good.
All right. I will make that change. Okay. Anything else in section 1?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Everybody else?
Let's keep it rolling.
Yep.
Looks good to me.
Okay. So section 2 is the dues. We had changed the not exceed $50 per year. So if everybody's good with section 2, we can move on to section 3.
So just because I wasn't participating fully in that last meeting, this was changed from 75 down to 50?
Yeah, the initial suggestion was 75, and then we just all agreed to make it no more than 50 because 75 is kind of pushing it.
Yeah, but the AKC suggestion was, or the AKC verbiage was 75 initially, right?
No, that
Oh.
was in Anne's version.
Okay, I thought that came from the AKC, but okay.
No, they just state that you have to have a not exceed.
Okay, got it. I'm good.
Okay. Everybody else good with section 2?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Moving right along. Section 3, election to membership. I don't recall if we made any changes there. Other than what's marked out.
So I would like to see what everybody's feelings are about our current process of reading the application at the next membership meeting. Because that seems to really get everything bogged down. And
That's
if
true.
a member is not there, I mean, we all know about that meeting where we had several wonderful DPCA members that people didn't know and they weren't voted into the club based on that process. So I'm wondering if we can discuss perhaps a better, more streamlined way for membership application and approval.
Well, to me, we should read it the first time and then read it again the second time,
Absolutely.
right before voting on them, just to refresh everyone's memory.
Correct.
Why do we feel this way?
Because people don't remember.
Because then it refreshes them because it's been 2 months since the last reading.
Right. They don't remember. And they need to hear things 2-3 times to have it make sense.
Do you
And
guys
say-
belong to any other clubs where this process is followed?
Yes, I belong to an obedience club locally. And that is the process. Now, let me think about that for a second. They're introduced and they usually have to stand up and talk about themselves. We did have them do that at the last general membership meeting, our guests. In fact, we did not read Beck's application. She filled it out while she was there, but she talked about herself to the membership. And the gentleman, oh goodness sakes, Lane, his name escapes me all of a sudden. I apologize. He did the same thing. He just talked about himself. We did not read the actual application because Beck's was handed in after she talked about herself.
Oh, Max DiLorata.
Yes, Max. So also the restaurant itself was quite loud. We were not expecting the music to be there, to be that loud. So I do belong to an obedience club, and the members have to re-engage with, or they're called associates at the time after application. So their applications are read by the membership secretary, but they're not read in a technical form. And then they get up and they introduce themselves. They talk about their breed of dog. And that happens at 3 membership meetings. And those are monthly meetings. And they're also, well, just for obedience sake, they're required to work an event and sort of commingle. And after they secure their requirements, then they are voted on. So if they apply in October and there's no events until January or February, they're not voted on until such time that they secure their requirements.
I'm going to interject here one moment with the working dog group. Right before we vote on the person is, if they're there, which they're supposed to be there, they stand up and introduce themselves and talk about themselves at the time that we're supposed to vote on them at that meeting. And that's how that usually is done at the working group.
Is that all at one meeting, Lynn, or is it an application, then the next meeting?
No, it's at the time. They usually hand in their application and their money. And then at the time of the meeting that they're going to be voted on in,
Mm-hmm.
then they introduce themselves. They stand up and they usually, Dan will usually say, we're voting on so-and-so and so-and-so. So-and-so, you please introduce yourself and tell us about yourself briefly. We don't want to, it's not going to be a big deal, a big long thing. Okay.
And then you vote right then?
No, we vote on them. So, whoever we're going to vote, maybe 2 people or 3 people, you're handed out a slip of paper, very much the same as what
Right.
we do here.
Okay.
And then voted yes or no, on whether they're
So,
in
but that all happens at one meeting.
one meeting.
See, that would streamline our process if we could implement something like that. Because our membership meetings are 2 months apart. So if you have somebody who applies in January we read it at the next meeting or at the first meeting available. And then a meeting after that, we read it again and we vote on them. So it can be 4 months after we receive their application before they're even voted on. That's where I was coming from on this process.
Yeah, they usually introduce themselves right. I mean, they stand up and tell everybody who they are at the time that they're being voted on, so that everybody knows, they're going to vote on this person that day.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, because I'm a member of the working group too, you have to have all your prerequisites done. You have to go to your
Yeah.
required number of meetings.
Right.
And then once you get done with all of that, then you go to your official meeting where you're voted on. Dan introduces you, he talks about you, and then he turns it over to you to give a 2-minute presentation on yourself and why you want to be part of the club. And then everybody votes. And that's it.
But the
That's
idea,
it.
though, Eric, is what you're saying is that there's still requirements and there's a time lag until they're voted on. So they have to attend multiple meetings. We're asking.
Oh, yeah, they have to attend.
Yeah, that's correct.
They don't read.
You're just not read twice, I
Yeah,
think.
you're
was
not
the
read
point.
multiple.
You're read once.
Okay.
Why can't we just email the applications when we do the agenda where we're gonna vote on them?
Say again, Allison?
Why can't we email their applications on the meeting, on the agenda, when you send out the email with the agenda on the time that we're gonna vote on? So we don't have to read it again.
Okay, we could do that.
Doesn't matter to me.
Do we want to try and implement some requirements of they have to attend a meeting first or an event first, something like that? Or do we want to keep this just really simple?
Well,
So,
they definitely would have to attend their meeting that they're going to get voted on. We have to see them in person.
Yes.
Okay.
so I'll tell, do you want to know how Arizona, the Phoenix Club does it?
Oh.
You have to, they're pretty strict. You have to attend 3 meetings before on the 3rd meeting, that's when you're voted on. But I'm not saying we need to do that, but the process basically is it's read at the first meeting and they do like an introduction, you're on the call, right? Because they do everything video. You're on the call, they introduce you, you attend the next meeting. Obviously, you're not part of the quorum or any of that. And then the 3rd meeting, that's when they have you, they actually vote on you and they'll make you leave the room or whatever to do that. But at that point in time, that's when you kind of talk about yourself and reintroduce yourself to everybody. And then, they vote. I'm not saying that's necessarily, we need 3 meetings. I think that's insane.
So
But
the process is what's wrong with the process today? Amy's talking about streamlining. Everybody's saying there's requirements at other places. So how do we do
Right.
we want to streamline the membership process, or are we comfortable with the lag because it gives us time to get to know people, right? Like when we met Kat out of Miami, she's lovely, does agility. She came to 2 meetings. Haven't necessarily seen her since, but that's, maybe if we were meeting down in Miami, she would attend. It's not always an easy drive, right? But is the goal to streamline or to get people in faster? I'm not sure where we're going here.
Well, the other thing I was going to bring up is once this goes through, we will have electronic meetings. So it would be, if their application comes in January, we'd be voting on them in March, right? And they're attending both meetings because it's easy to do so. They don't have to drive across the state to an in-person meeting.
Good point. But would we require them to attend an in-person meeting since we're going to have at least 2, or I don't know, maybe 3 a year? I can't remember exactly what the requirement is. And if we're not,
It's
that's
one.
okay, I'm just asking.
It's only one.
Yeah, I think it's 1 meeting.
It's 1 in-person meeting a year, which technically a lot of us that are in the same area we're probably all gonna, let's be real, we'll probably get together anyways, because somebody needs to have like the laptop to be able to project the camera rather than just everybody on a call. At least that's how I've seen other clubs do it. People still get together. So those, technically count as in-person meetings.
Lynn, Eric, how many in-person meetings does the working group have?
Believe it's 2, isn't it, Eric? I think it's two meetings.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was the one at Royal Canin, and then there's the one in what, Ocala?
Yeah.
And then I think the rest are, well, I'm not on the board there, so I'm not 100% sure, Lynn. You'd probably have to answer that one.
Meetings. You have to attend 2 meetings and then you're voted on in the working group.
So whether that be electronic or in person, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be in person.
No. You have to attend 2 meetings
Okay,
or in attendance of 2
You're-
meetings.
with the
So
electronic
just-
aspect, it makes it easier.
Right.
So just to answer your question, Christine, my question was just about reading this application twice. That's just where I started because it just seemed like an archaic thing to do. I don't belong to other dog clubs that follow a process like this, which is why I asked the question. The clubs that I belong to, membership is voted on by the board. So that's why I was just trying to get some explanation and feedback, because this process that we follow seems to just take a long time, but maybe that's common. So it was just for discussion that I was asking.
No, it's a good discussion. It definitely was a good discussion. So
And-
do we feel now at this time that based upon moving to electronic meetings that we feel a little bit more comfortable about the process encompassed in with electronic meetings?
I'm fine with it.
Well, I think it makes it easier. Definitely.
Sure.
Meetings. And I think what I was saying, and I was answering Amy's question about it was only read, the person stood up and it was read as what I remembered. Now, maybe Eric, remembered something else, but I just remembered them reading and introducing themselves right before they were voted on at that time. I was answering Amy's question about that, as to where that would be streamlined. That was it. Not anything else about attending meetings at that point. So, however you want to word that, 1 meeting, 2 meetings with electronic meetings, included. 2 meetings with electronic meeting included. It's still the same in person.
Right. I think it's good. I forgot about the moving to electronic meetings. That'll be good. Hopefully we'll get quieter venues where we can actually, when we do get together, we can have Zoom, right? So that everybody feels connected. So we'll definitely have to look for quieter places. I mentioned to Allison a couple weeks ago that maybe we could, look for a hotel conference room or something like that, if possible, in that area. And then we can go for margaritas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's the Holiday Inn right there too, isn't there?
Yeah. We'll just have to. I'll
And they
call-
usually have a conference room.
Sure.
So do you guys want anything changed on this section?
Well, what does it read it now? I'm sorry, I'm lost.
It's okay. Each applicant for membership shall apply on a form as approved by the Board of Directors and which shall provide that the applicant agrees to abide by these Constitution and bylaws and the rules and regulations of the American Kennel Club. The application shall include, I don't know why there's another shall. I'm going to fix it real quick. That's weird. I don't even know how that happened. The application shall include the name, address, sponsor from the club, occupation, signature and date of the applicant. Accompanying the application, the prospective member shall submit dues payment for the financial fiscal year. All applications are to be filed with the secretary. Each membership application is to be read at the first meeting of the club following its receipt. Each applicant must attend at least one general meeting
Yep.
prior to his or her acceptance. At the next club meeting following the application being read, the prospective member will be voted upon. A 2/3 secret vote by the members present and in good standing is required for approval. Membership becomes effective on the date of membership approval. Applicants for membership who have been rejected by the club can reapply 6 months after the date of rejection.
Okay, so that's 2 meetings. So there's one meeting and then the second meeting.
Well, no, it just says that they have to be at one. They don't have to be at one or the other.
Oh, okay.
Can we, so when you actually read that out loud, Jenna, I think the way I hear it is, so we read an application. So we get an application, we read it at the next meeting. The applicant must attend one meeting, so it could
Right.
be the one where it's read.
Mhm.
And then at the meeting after that, we vote on it, but that person doesn't need to be there when we vote.
Or that could be the one that they go to. But they can't be voted on until they've attended a meeting, whether it's
Right.
that meeting or the meeting
Or
prior.
some other, right?
Right.
So it's, yeah, okay.
And then do we want to add, or should we add rules and regulations of the DPCA and the AKC?
No, because they're not usually members of the DPCA.
Oh, yes, correct. Okay. And then what was my other question here? Oh, so on page 3, the second sentence, the application shall include the name, address, sponsor from the club, occupation, signature, and date of the application, not the date of the applicant.
Well, yeah, because they're filling out an application, so they have to, when they sign it, they have to date it.
No, it would be the date of the application, not the date of the
Yeah.
applicant.
Right.
So
The signature and date. Oh, I see what you're saying. They sign and date it as the person applying.
Application is the paper that they're signing. So applicant is the person, application is the paper that they're signing. So that's 2 different things. That's what she's saying.
Yeah.
Right.
we're gonna
So-
have to go. I'm sorry, is that cleared up?
Yeah, it just needs to say the date of the application. In other words, the date that it is being applied would be the date of the application. You see what
Okay,
you're saying?
so. Well, I see it, but what we've never had on the application is the applicant's occupation. We're gonna have to do over the application to be a member.
Well, usually they say that, or sometimes it's said in the notes that the person writes about themselves. Isn't there usually where somebody would put that?
No, I don't
No?
think so. I
I'm
don't
sorry,
read
Mi-
any,
I missed something. So what did you say, Elaine? What needs to be redone?
the application will need to be redone to include the applicant's occupation, we have never asked for that on the application.
I mean,
Occupation.
we can delete that. We don't have to have that in there. That's AKC's terminology.
Well, that would depend on whether we think it's important.
I mean, does it matter what someone does for a living?
No, not to me.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so if
Then
everybody's in
I-
agreement, I'm just gonna strike out occupation so we don't have to redo the application too.
I don't think it's necessary. You know, occupation is necessary.
Is everybody okay with me just striking out occupation?
Yes.
I am.
Yep.
Okay. And then I can reword where it says signature and date of the applicant. I can say signature of the applicant and date.
And date of the application. Application and applicant are two different things.
Right, but that's why we signature of the applicant
And
Right.
today's
and
date.
date.
And the date of the application, or just signature of the applicant. Doesn't matter.
Most of them just say signature of applicant and today's date.
Right.
Okay. Signature of the applicant and date of the application. And date the application was filled out.
Or just date. I mean, it's.
All right, yeah, that's better. And date.
Yeah.
So signature of the applicant and date.
Right. Of
Okay,
course.
great. So if everybody's in agreement, are we good?
Good.
Good.
Very good.
Let it roll.
Okay.
Good.
So section 4, termination of membership. We didn't really make any changes on this part other than the stuff that's marked out was what was previously on there. But it's just by resignation upon written notice to the secretary, by lapsing, and then giving the AKC's recommended terminology, and then by expulsion, that they may be terminated by expulsion as provided in Article 6 of these bylaws.
I'm fine with it.
I'm good with it.
Looks good to me.
Yes, for me.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so, Article 2, meetings and voting, Section 1.
All right, I have an issue. The way it's stated, it says it's the second Wednesday of the month. There's no language in there for any flexibility, so like the meeting we're having next week would be out of compliance. And then a lot of times they do have to change the meeting in October, like when everybody's going to the national. So there might need to be a
Could
little
we
bit.
say, or as designated by the board under certain circumstances? I don't know what those circumstances are, but
Yeah, just to keep it in compliance, I just think it needs to have a little bit of an adjustment on there.
On this topic, way back when I was talking with Elaine, she said that, and I wish I could remember the verbiage, I had it at one point, but it's gone. That the Mount Hood Club has a provision for the flexibility to change the date on 2 meetings per year. And they also have something about like an alternate location, such as for one of their events or something like that. I should have tried to get that from her before the meeting, but I just ran out of time. But I think we should try and find that that language, because whatever it was very good language.
Well, to me, if there's a conflict, holiday, blah, 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 then, the meeting shall be held as directed by the board, something along those lines. But I see what you're saying. Yes, for sure. But we are covered as far as, we don't need a blurb as far as anything else, because it actually says we're covered as, any type of meeting we want to have, it's covered here. So we don't have to state one thing or another.
But the
So we
dates
have
are
to, like,
locked in this.
the
like
dates
what
are,
Allison
yes.
was saying. That's
No,
what I'm talking
absolutely.
about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And 100%. I mean, we absolutely need a blurb in there for that. Okay.
Do you want me to reach out and try and get that language for you, Jenna?
Sure.
Okay, I'll check. I'll try and get it to you tomorrow or the next day.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on to section 2. Any issues there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one other thing. The DPCA and maybe the AKC too, and I don't know where this is written in ours. We had just a little while ago, we had some discussion about one face-to-face meeting per year. I believe the DPCA recommends that clubs have 2. That came out of the
Special meeting, yeah.
So
it
they
came out of
recommend,
the
so
it
let me
came out of
just
the
intervene
chapter.
there. I spoke directly with Elaine, and I have their rules that we have to adhere to in order to remain a chapter club, and that is not one of them. And I have it in.
When Eric and I attended the chapter club meeting at the National, the recommendation, it's not a rule, but the recommendation was to have 2 face-to-face meetings per year.
Right,
So
recommendation.
I will back up Amy on this one. I truly believe that we should have 2 meetings per year. If we have the ability to shift those meetings, perhaps we would be lucky enough to have one maybe at next year's specialty in January. That's some just food for thought. I do like the idea of 2 in-person membership meetings. I just think it's healthy. And like I said, if we have the ability to shift the dates, maybe we could move one to align to our big events. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree, Christine, and I think that that's where your bonding and camaraderie happens. People get to know each other. You spend more time together socializing rather than just over a Zoom call. So it's there for a reason, that recommendation. And I remember Elaine discussing it during that meeting, but
It can work 2 ways too. You have it at your big specialty show. You can also maybe bring on some new members.
good point, Randy.
Well, I'm fine with two in-person meetings. I have no problem with that. I think that's, it's okay. That's what the club wants to do. I'm fine with that.
I have
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah, I personally agree with 2 in-person meetings.
I'm for 2 in-person meetings.
I am too, then I get to see Lane.
And the thing is that we have one already because the general meeting in December has to be in person. That meeting has to be in person. The voting.
No, because we have a electronic voting is addressed later in the new bylaw. So it doesn't have to be.
Well, we've always had it in person and
Right, right. It doesn't mean we can't. It just means we don't have to. It's also right before Christmas, which is hard for a lot of people because they're busy doing other things, right?
It's true. It's true. I mean, heck, we couldn't even get a restaurant for Valentine's Day. How crazy is that?
well, it would have been nice if we could have had it at the dog show, but then people
Agreed.
didn't want to come. Understandably, people didn't want to come if their dog was going to get sick.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. At Royal Canin. I know. Yes, yes.
That's an ideal place to meet.
Well,
I know it's December, but I do like the idea of the annual meeting being in person, especially when voting on officers is taking place.
Well, yeah, we can actually do both, so that way there's bigger attendance. So we could make it in person but this whole section covers all of that already. The only thing it doesn't cover is the flexibility. And then, if you want to put in 2 in-person meetings per year, we can simply just state 2 in-person meetings per year. We don't have to be specific as long as you adhere to the 2 in-person meetings per year.
well, I think that's a good idea because we can always decide at a later date when we want to have, the 2 meetings. We already
Right.
kind of know that we have our meeting in December. We usually have the meeting in December. This year it was because of circumstances that were not, good for dogs and people. But we usually have one in December, and then we can decide if we want to have one in January or if we want to have it at another time. But if we have we have 2 meetings, at least we have the option to hold it when we want at that point.
Correct. So if everybody's in favor, then we'll do a blurb for flexibility, right? On when those meetings are held, and then 2 in-person meetings per year. And obviously I'll come up with better terminology, but I'm just paraphrasing.
I like that.
Yes, for me.
Everybody else good?
I'm good.
Amy?
Sorry, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Allison? Oh, I got a thumbs up.
I love it. How did you do that?
Leave
Was
it to
that
her to
me?
find out something cool you can
That
do
is super
in a
cool.
meeting.
It's on the bottom under reactions.
That's awesome. All
Oh
right,
my God.
so moving
yeah.
on. Go ahead. Somebody was talking? No? Okay. So, section 2 now, special club meetings. Everybody good there?
I'm good.
Yes.
I think we're good to move on.
I'm
Okay.
good with it. It's
Okay.
good.
All right. Board meetings.
Can we
Same
cut those
thing.
in half? I'm
Same thing, add in the blurb,
Yeah, I
or
think so.
because it's electronic, it doesn't matter. What do you guys want to do?
I think we need to add the option to change.
Okay,
It just covers us if something comes up or
absolutely. So section 3, add blurb, when obviously 2 in-person meetings are not a thing, right? Or for flexibility. Okay, anything else?
Is everybody reading or are we good?
We're good.
Okay,
I'm
I'm
good.
I'm
We're
good.
okay.
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good.
section 4, special board meetings.
Jenna, I have a question.
Sure.
Which is it, AKC or DPCA who's saying no other business can be transpired at a special board meeting?
AKC.
I think
And
that's
DP
Robert's.
and
I think that's Robert's Rules of Order, Lynn or Lane.
And DPCA follows that as well,
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but it's
That's a-
AKC's rule.
one of the things that I have seen, Lane, and maybe you guys experience it in West Palm, I don't know. But let me know if anybody else has experienced that. I've had the Obedience Club be in a board meeting, and everybody can attend board meetings at the Obedience Club. And they will go into a special session. So they kind of throw you out of the room and you come back and, they bring business back to order. And then something else arises and they go back into a special board session, like immediately. Whereas we wait, right? We say that it has to be 5 days notification, what have you. And I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
It's 2 days. Well, this one, the modification is 2 days for
2
special
days.
board meetings.
So at the Obedience Center, they can go into special session if everybody present agrees. That's how they do it. Just FYI. And I
Are
don't
you
know
talking
why-
about like an executive session?
Well, they call it a special board meeting. We're gonna commence a
Oh,
board
okay.
meeting. So we're gonna need the participants to step outside. We expect to be 10 minutes as it's a single subject topic. And then they'll tell us when they're gonna let us back in. That's kind of what they do. Not that I feel that that's necessary, I just thought I'd share that.
They do that in the Scent Work Club too. All the board meetings are by Zoom, but any of the members can log in and listen. They just can't vote or participate. They can listen though.
Oh, okay.
But if there is an executive session, then they have to log out.
Yeah.
Things are private to the board, always. Yes.
Does that mean that we could have a board meeting and call an executive session afterwards? Because we're already meeting, and let's say the first meeting didn't take too long, and we could hash out another subject very quickly?
Yes, that's exactly what happens with these other clubs. They take care of very quick business. Right
Okay.
there immediately. There's no, if everybody that's present agrees, and maybe there's a minimum qualifier. I mean, we probably couldn't have a board meeting without, 2/3 of us present. I don't know, but they can go into the next subject if they so choose.
Okay.
So
Good
that
enough.
brings up the idea, is that something that you would like to consider? Should we explore language in that area? And I'm not saying that we know or can construct that tonight. Maybe that's something that somebody else can help us with. You know what I mean?
That's something that we could deal with later and modify the CMB, in my opinion. Because that's gonna be a lot more creativity. It's not, and the only issue I really see, honestly, is you're in the middle of a regular meeting and then you're like, okay, everybody log off. You have to be off of here because we have to have a special board meeting for a minute, and then we'll let everybody know when they can log back on. I feel like that's
Well, Jenna, I'm not necessarily
more of an issue.
I'm not trying to create more amendments down the road. What I'm suggesting that if we get this to an attorney, that attorney can shore up that language. We still have that ability after the attorney looks at it to accept or reject any language that they so choose. So what I'm saying is if that's something that we would like to opt in, we may not get the language completely tight tonight or even 2 days from now, but we could leave it open to explore it with the attorney.
Sure, whatever everybody wants.
Well, one thing
Yeah.
I don't want to do is come back and do this again.
Well,
Unless
we're
we don't
already
finish tonight.
This is
we're
hard
already
work. This
we're
is
already
really
gonna
hard work.
have to. We're already gonna have to. Lane, because of the changes with the blurbs and stuff. So if it's gonna be done, then I guess, do it now. So then we don't have to do it another time after this. I mean, we'll do it again, and then we don't want to have to do it again after that.
Wait a
someone
minute,
doesn't like-
Jenna. That's not
Yeah.
what we said at the beginning of this meeting. We said that we were going to go through this and we were going to document the changes and we were going to vote on those changes. That either we agree to them or not, whether the language is specific or not, it's still the finalization from the attorney would be the final one, right? Like I'm just confused why we would go at this again.
Well, even though we're discussing everything here, I'm not comfortable voting on something until I have a final copy.
Exactly.
that we're going to send to the AKC and the DPCA for review.
Hey, Amy, we're not sending it to the AKC or DPCA until it goes to an attorney.
And
We
then the
have not
general
voted on an
membership.
attorney yet.
Yeah,
though.
we haven't, yeah, we're not there yet.
Right, but then it has to also go to the general membership for voting
Exactly,
as
exactly.
well.
Wait
Yep.
a minute, time out. So are we saying that it's gonna go through a whole round into the general membership before an attorney?
No, no, no. So the way it would work is it would go from us. And once we approve all the changes and so forth, and we've said, okay, these are all the changes we want, everybody's happy. Then it goes to the attorney goes in, I guarantee you, they're gonna want to change some stuff to adhere to the Nonprofit Act for Florida. To make sure that we're within compliance, right? Because that's what AKC is constantly hammering on clubs, is make sure that you're within compliance for your state. Because they can't supersede what the compliance is for your state.
I understand. I'm with you.
So
My
then
question
after
is,
that,
why do
it
we
comes
have-
back to us.
No. Time out. Why do we have to go back through it?
Because we're making changes now, and in my mind, unless everybody's just okay with me making the changes and then emailing it out, but in my mind, we'd have to have another meeting to vote on it to accept it.
Except
I think with the amount of time that everyone has put into this, Jenna and the committee before her, I think that we want to get it right before we just accept it. And yes, as a club, we want to get this done, but this isn't something that I'm comfortable just saying, yeah, off you go. I give my blessing. But
right, I'm trying to get, I guess I thought that tonight's session was to vote to go to, or to preparations to go to the attorney. This is not the end all be all. There will be changes after this. This is a flexible document. It's not concrete until it comes back from the attorney and we agree at that point. So
I understand, but we haven't even voted on whether we want to use an attorney or not. So
Correct, correct.
So
And
we're putting the cart before the horse here. Let's get through the CMB and then go through what we as a board decide are the next steps.
Yes, I agree with Amy. I mean, I've talked to many clubs around the country, and everyone says they stay away from an attorney. All of them.
Well,
Do
the one thing
not.
I will say about that, Randy, the problem is our CMB, those clubs aren't in trouble with AKC and they're not out of compliance with DPCA. So the fact that so many things have been done and not even the state being aware of it is a problem. We need to make sure, so we don't lose our status with the state, that everything's in compliance. That's the problem. It's the previous stuff that's been done that we don't necessarily know because all those records were destroyed. So we have no idea. And none of us are attorneys. None of us know
But the
anything
AKC
about.
has provisions in there that
Yes,
you don't
and
need an
if-
attorney.
Yes.
You do not
Oh,
need an attorney.
They do not say that. They recommend highly that you have an attorney. If you
Okay.
read any of the documentation that I sent over from AKC, it actually states you need that they highly recommend that you have an attorney review. Small clubs, it's fine, but
No, I'm
because they don't
talking bigger-
necessarily
I'm talking
have the
bigger
money.
clubs than our clubs, and they've all said, stay away from them. It's a waste of money.
Okay. Well, it's, one of the attorneys is asking for $1,000 retainer. The other one is asking for $1,200. We have the money, so why not make sure? Because an officer has to sign stating that
Yeah.
they are not aware of violating any state statutes.
Yeah, I spoke
Us-
about this last time as well, and I agree with Jenna completely on this because this is what led to the majority of the board members resigning. in my community is the fact that they were not operating under state laws and they were acting like they were their own attorneys. And the board members have to sign off on the things that are going on here. If you make a mistake, you're putting yourself at liability. And then if I don't know if this club has board member insurance that's supposed to cover you in the event of a lawsuit, but I will tell you, if you make the wrong decisions and you do not have an attorney sign off, that's considered reckless. And then you're not covered by that insurance policy if the club has it. So I can't see how anybody can recommend not having an attorney, but I do agree with Christine. I mean, I would think we just vote on the verbiage tonight. We all agree, kind of like we've been doing. But the next step after tonight should be sending it off to an attorney and letting them
But
do a final review.
We have to vote on that first, Eric.
Well, I see that, I understand that, but we need to do that. It should go hand in hand. And then after the attorney's done with their revisions, then everyone gets back together one time and just votes at that point on the final changes. I mean, that would be seamless and follow a logical process.
Well, we're wasting time arguing about voting on the attorney when we've got to get through this
Right.
so that we have something to vote on. Then
So
we
on-
can argue about the attorney.
100%. So on section 4, is everything good with section 4?
I'm good.
I'm good.
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 Great.
Good.
That's the majority. Okay, so section 5, voting.
I'm good.
I think we need to clarify some stuff about this electronic voting.
Well, that's exactly what AKC states, Amy. And so I just copied their recommended terminology.
Jenna, I
But
understand
again,
that
that's
everything
something-
that you're
that's something-
presenting
Mhm.
is what you've taken and gleaned from the AKC. I'm just asking questions for
Sure.
discussion so that we can do this. So you
Of
don't
course.
need to be defensive. I'm just asking.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Because I would like to know, are we as a club going to open up every vote to electronic voting? Who is going to determine what is a secure electronic process? Because as we know, Sandy had a secure electronic process. So how do we
That
who
process wasn't actually considered secure, but yeah, I get what you're
but
saying.
you understand what I'm saying. So
Uh-huh.
I mean, I personally don't think that elections should be done by electronic voting. I know lots of clubs do, but we don't have the budget to pay a service like Vote Now that is truly wasn't secure with Sandy either. Go figure. But you know what I mean? Like there are really secure electronic voting platforms, but those aren't the platforms that we can afford to pay, or that I don't think a club of our size should pay for. So I would just like to open that up for discussion. Like, what kinds of things do we want to vote on electronically, and what kind of platform and what budget would we have to pay for that? Because if we have it in here that we are going to do electronic voting and then we insist on everything being in person, then that can be a gray area too.
Lynn, I have a question. How does the working group handle electronic voting?
They don't. They vote in person.
How do you vote for members?
In person. At a meeting.
But you guys only have 2 meetings a year.
Usually at the December meeting, that's when they vote on their officers.
But how do you vote for new membership?
New membership.
With new membership.
Oh, new members at the next meeting. They have in-person meetings like 4 times a year.
Oh, okay. So more in person.
Yeah.
And there's no electronic voting.
No,
Okay. So what are our thoughts on that, guys? I'm open to suggestions and ideas. Where, the Obedience Club, we do everything in person. We actually send people out or we raise our hands to vote and they do a hand count. Yes, you raise your hand like you're in elementary school. You know what I mean?
I think more
Well-
people would be engaged if we had some kind of online voting.
But Amy has a point. We don't have necessarily the funds to conduct membership voting, officer voting, like board turnover voting, that kind of stuff. She's got a good point there.
What does it cost? Any idea?
It's usually $100 per member on an annual basis. You pay a subscription.
Yeah, I looked at the Vote Now at one point when went during COVID, when we were doing stuff with the magazine, and it was like, I had a quote it was in the thousands for one voting thing.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
expensive.
I'm
Well,
sure.
Yeah.
what we could do is reach out to the CMB committee for AKC and ask them who they recommend. It could be that simple. And then look into it.
But we have,
Oh.
we actually have looked into it. Vote Now, and there's I looked into, because we've looked at this before, Jenna. The Parson Russell Terrier Association does it as well, and it's $50 per person minimum annually, and you can do as many votes as you want. So you have to think about the number of voting members.
So
And-
you're telling me the DPCA is forking out per member to be able to do their electronic voting?
Yeah, that's what they do. It's a subscription. Yeah.
So in that, but how many members are there? Let's think about that. Like, what's realistic here? I mean, to me, that's a question for Elaine then. I mean, and Amy, if you don't mind asking her who they use, because there's no way
They use Vote
DPCA
Now. They use Vote Now. Amy quoted that already.
yeah, Vote Now. They've always said they Vote Now.
There's
So
no way.
we
they're
have
paying that
money-
much money.
We finally have some money, but all we're doing is thinking of ways to spend it.
I don't disagree. And I think that this is a good topic, as all of the topics have been good. This is where we run into problems if we only have, if we restrict the number of in-person meetings, we are going to run into this because most clubs vote in person. It's much cleaner. I'm not saying, I get the engagement, but do we want votes from people that are not going to be there, right? So I don't know. It's just food for thought, guys.
So the only thing I'm going to interject and say is that the majority of this CMB, it just says 2/3 vote. It does not say secure. It specifies in each section which way it is on whether it has to be a secure voting or non-secure voting.
No, Jenna, though, I will speak up on the behalf of this, and Amy and Allison, Lynn and Lane can chime in. A secure vote online is absolutely non-negotiable. We went through a voting process for several years that was unsecure. We discovered, actually, Amy led the project and discovered that the voting system that the previous president was using could be edited at any point.
I realize that, but I guess my point is there's only a couple things that say electronic in the section itself. Most of it is just 2/3 vote. Not electronic. All this section states is that it may be allowed. That's
So
the
we
key
have-
word.
So what you're
So
saying is
how
we
would
have
that
to-
work then if we have an election coming up and there's
We've
a
already
contingent?
stated, we've already stated that
Jenna,
there's
can you
two
stop
meetings.
interrupting, please? May I speak? How would that work if there's an election coming up and there's a contingency of members that say, well, we want to vote electronically. And we say, well, no, the process is that we are holding an in-person vote for our for the next board, for example. And they say, well, no, in the C&B, it says electronic voting may be allowed. How do we say, no, we don't extend electronic voting to you at this situation?
Because each section already states 2/3 either electronic or non-electronic. It's already specified throughout the CMB on how it needs to be held. And then I'll give you another caveat to that whole thing is if, let's just say, the board decides, okay, we're going to hold the 2 in-person meetings here or here, it's 2/3, right? So let's just say for electing people in for the board, if they're not there, if we don't have 2/3 of the membership there to vote, then we can't vote.
No. I'm sorry. I disagree. So a quorum allows a vote to be conducted. It's 2/3 of the membership present. That
Right.
is the voting capacity. So I think we have to, if we're going to have multiple meetings on this, and I think some very good points have been brought up. I thought this was going to be a little bit easier. I think that what Lynn has indicated, Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. All voting at the working club commences in person. And Eric, we talked about this before about your HOA. That's always done in person. And I get it. Geographically, everybody's closer. It's an HOA. But that's for the avoidance of doubt.
Yeah. And
So
based upon what I'm hearing here, I mean, that really should be what we're doing too, because at the end of the day, we just don't have the money to fund it any other way. So,
correct.
I mean, and in person can also be on a, now that we're going to be able to do calls like tonight, it could also be present on a call like tonight. It doesn't always have to be in physical person, just present on a call, because we're opening up electronic calls for the future, right? So you could still vote on those and it's still all in the light.
Well, I don't know. Allison, Amy, thoughts?
Yeah, I guess if it's, so that's something interesting, Eric, because I hadn't thought of that. So if you're on an electronic call, like you're doing a membership meeting electronically, then you could conduct that vote, but it's still only the people on that call.
Correct.
Because my train of thought is, if it's something important for you, you show up to vote. So I'm just trying to get away from the situation where somebody like me that lives 3 hours from Brooksville, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to cast my vote from home. I don't need to drive up and go to the meeting to choose the board. No, if it's important to me, I will get my ass up there. That's where I was thinking of electronic voting, but even to do a vote over a Zoom call, that's still, like Eric said, technically an in-person vote because you're there face to face or by
Yep.
telecon.
And,
Yep.
and if it's being recorded, there is a record of that person's vote.
Good point. Good point, Lynn.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah,
Be a
it doesn't say secret, secure electronic process. It just says secure electronic process.
And it's a secure process because there's a passcode that only the people on the call had to get in.
The Obedience Club that I'm with does all of their voting on Zoom.
On Zoom.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I see a path forward. Okay.
So any changes then, or it's fine?
I think we need to, maybe we can work on some email stuff back and forth this week as a board to try and, refine that language there.
So something to the effect that we want to spell it out a little bit more, not just say secure meet, but where the meetings are held, Zoom, Skype, whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or maybe that it's the word electronic voting is throwing me off because electronic to me means you get something in your email and you cast a vote.
Right.
So maybe, and I think we've all kind of agreed that even on a call like this is considered
Virtual.
in-person voting. Virtual, maybe, yeah.
Oh,
virtually.
yeah. That's not,
Telecom virtual, I think is a better terminology.
Yeah.
We're
But
on
that
electronic
only-
devices. I think that's why AKC uses that terminology, is it's still an electronic device. So it leaves it open to do it how you want, but what everybody wants to do is fine with me.
I understand the difference, where it throws you off, but we have if we leave it that way, we can discern which way we want to go with it. We want to do it virtually or teleconference. We can decide how we want to do that.
Right, which electronic covers all of that, right?
If we do that, we don't have to. We can do it in person if we decide to do that too.
Or if there's a way to word it such that, virtual voting only happens during an electronic meeting, something like that, right? That's the only time when, and maybe, like you said, Jenna, throughout the CMB, it spells out when that's allowed, but I just want to make sure that members don't misinterpret it that, oh, I'm not going to a meeting, where's my ballot?
I think putting in there allows for virtual voting with example of Zoom, etc. You can put that in there.
Okay, again, it's still electronic. It's still the same thing. So to me, there's no reason to be specific. The second you are more specific, the more room it gives you to have error and to be in violation of your own CMB, right? So electronic covers anything like laptop, phone, anything that has to plug in to charge is electronic, or a phone, or landline even, right? So you have to be connected to something that's giving you that service. In person is literally in person.
Yeah, and it says in-person meetings, so.
This is the last thing I'll say. I just think that the group is looking, it's not that it's so broad, Jenna, that it gives a little bit of uncomfortable aspect because of the electronic voting that we went through previously. That's all. So trying to just bridge that gap, I don't have the vernacular right now to do that, but I think you can see where other people are coming from. I don't think they're as quite as comfortable as you are with electronic voting. It's
Yeah,
just-
whatever,
it's very
again,
broad.
whatever everybody wants is fine with me.
So why don't we move on from that particular topic, knowing that we'd like to shore it up? Maybe we can look at another club's C&B for that, just to have an idea. Maybe something will spring to mind. But let's table this one.
I just labeled it as verbiage.
Perfect.
Okay, so moving on, Article 3, Section 1. I did do some slight changes to this entire article because initially I had Eric, delegate, as being an officer. So I moved that to its own section because technically Eric's not an officer, right? So that's the only change that I really made from when I was going through and doing the just changes for, little stuff that was misspelled or commas or whatever. I noticed that I had that in there and I was like, okay, that's not correct. So I did make delegate its own little section. But if you just look at Section 1, Board of Directors, does anybody have any changes that need to be made there?
Well, I brought this up before and I don't know how people feel about it, but making the secretary into 2 position, corresponding and recording.
So I don't think that that's a bad idea, Allison, just my 2 cents. The problem that, or the challenge that lies beyond that is then we have an even number of votes. We don't have an odd number of votes. And I think that the board, it is my understanding, has always tried to maintain an odd number of votes. And so for whatever that's worth.
So where it stands now is if we had a split vote, you would vote to be the tiebreaker, but if we had an extra secretary, so to speak, I guess the president wouldn't have to ever vote if it was tied.
What are your thoughts, Lane? You've been in the secretary role for quite some time.
And I'm not
Well,
trying to
you-
you out, Lane. I'm just trying to make it easier for you. And the same person could hold both roles if they wanted to.
Not
Well,
if,
we've had,
not if we put it in writing, there would have to be a separate. So Lane, you're the secretary, you tell us.
well, previously there were 2. But when we went down to so few numbers, it was popped together. I think it's a good idea. However, I go back to what Christine was saying about we're supposed to have an odd number.
Well, I mean, here's a solution. We could make the delegate a voting member. Why couldn't we do that?
I don't know.
Because then
So
there
I'm confused on this odd number. Are we supposed to have an odd number of total board members?
It's
Yeah.
highly suggested you have odd voting board members, so that way there's never, a head-on collision.
Yes.
tie.
Under-
So
Fine.
without, okay, so as it stands now, we have 3 board members, a secretary, a treasurer, and a vice president that can
And a
vote.
president.
So, right, but
And
we
a
have six,
president.
we have 6 voting members.
Well, technically
So-
it's 7 because it never says anywhere that the president can't vote.
The president
Under
doesn't,
Robert's Rules of Order, the president only votes to break a tie.
right.
Well, but Robert's Rule of Order only comes into play if the CMB doesn't cover it. And then if the state doesn't cover it, then Robert's Rule of Orders comes into play. So it's in
Robert's
that
Rules
order.
of Order govern all boards and operating procedures. Okay, so that's your first fallback. Yes, if something isn't covered in our CNB, but this is a general thing with boards. So the president only votes in the case of a tie. So
Okay.
as it stands now, we have 6 voting board members, which would make the
mean-
president the tiebreaker. If you add a second secretary, the only time you're going to have a tie is if one board member is absent from a vote. So I don't see why or when or where that is even relevant, because there's times where a board member is absent in a meeting and it changes the mix anyhow.
Good point.
Well, let's leave it the way it is. I'm rolling off this December. The new person can figure out after a year or two what they think.
But Lane, we can't, if you're rolling off, we can't leave it because somebody may not want both roles. They may sign up and be like, well, I want to do recording or I want to do corresponding. So it kind of makes it slightly
Okay.
easier for us to fill your role.
So let me think here. Should we be doing this based upon the number of members that we have? Should the board positions be directly related to the number of members that we have? So, let's think about committees, okay? And how many committee members we have for particular events. Is it necessary to add another board member? And the reason that I say this, guys, is that sometimes it's hard to get together. Sometimes it's difficult to get people to do events. I don't want to set our future board up for failure because we're asking for so many positions in what is relatively a small club. If we were 100 members, there would be a heck of a lot more people to choose from, right? Like, we're not that big. So that's just food for thought.
But all I'm saying, Christine, is it could be separated now. This one person could do both if they wanted to. But if we don't separate it now, you can't do it later unless we go through all of this again.
Right, but we're going to have to document it. Like, if said individual wants to do both roles, then they get 1 vote. If it's in 2 roles,
Right.
there's 2 separate votes. All of that has to be
All right.
documented.
Wait, let me say this. There is very little correspondence. Everything listed here is one job, and then there's correspondence. Well, I don't write that many letters to people. You know, I mean, outside of the club. It just doesn't really happen. So if you're talking about a corresponding and a recording, the corresponding job is almost nil.
What if we do something like what Christine was suggesting, and would there be an opportunity to include language that you know, when the club reaches 50, I'm just throwing this out there, 50 total members, the sitting board has the option to split the secretary's job into a recording and corresponding, or a membership secretary and a recording secretary, however you label it. But that would be a way around it. And, you know, because if, you know, we're a club now, when we all started, we had one little specialty show. Now we do agility trials and scent work trials, and we have a weigh every couple of years. We're doing, you know, 4 specialties. We have, we can do obedience trials should we choose. So if those events all happen, there is a lot more correspondence that needs to go out. And Lane, maybe if it wasn't all on you, we could be a more communicative club and send out more notices to the members if it wasn't all falling on you.
Can I interject? I am recording secretary for the working group. And my duties as recording secretary for the working group is simply to communicate with the membership. I am told, you know, I send out all the notices, very much like Lane does, but I send out all the notices to the club of the meetings, of any events, of anything that comes from AKC. That is my job. And I also take and record and keep a list of all the members, you know, the members that belong. So I have that record as well. Judy Lustig is recording secretary for the club. She does all the recording of the meetings. So there are 2, and we are only about 40 members in that club, but there are 2. So just to give you an idea.
And what kind of treasury does that club have, Lynn?
They have a professional, that's what's her name? Vix. Her and her husband are accountants.
Mm-hmm. So the problem I see with like basing it just on the membership is we don't know what the membership is basically till the end of January when dues are final.
Right.
And our voting is in December, or our elections are in December.
Right. Well, we basically know how much members we have now, right now.
Well, yeah, because it's federal.
Right. But I'm just saying, you know, it is split. You know, there are about 40 members, and there are 2 secretaries. So it just depends on what you want. You know, they prefer to.
Whatever you want.
Maybe Lane would stay if she only had to do part of her job.
Lane, stay.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea. If we want it, we got to document it.
I personally like the idea of splitting it. I think that in today's day and age, we're all so busy and pulled in different directions that it also gives one more person the opportunity to become involved with the club and volunteer if it's not such a huge job.
I agree. And really the second most important job in the club is the secretary. So That has my vote, but whatever you guys want.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. We gotta draw job descriptions for both.
No problem.
And you'll have to say effective, January, whatever, the next voting.
Just December of 24.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, one thing, going back here, I forgot to bring this up before. Keep a roll of members of the club with their addresses, blah, 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 you handed out upon written request. We handed out, every time there's a member change and once every club year. So you can take all that out because we don't do that.
Okay, we're actually not to the, can we wait till we get to that spot?
All right.
Just so we don't get ahead of the order. Okay, so everybody's on board with splitting the secretary position and having two, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so anything
Yes.
else in section 1 needs to be changed, or are we good?
Good.
Good.
Well, yes, what I just said.
Good.
And good.
Okay,
I'm not good.
okay, section 1 just lists.
You got to take this part.
Which part of section 1 do you want taken out?
Are we on
You're still on. You're still on.
section 2? No, wait.
No, we're on section 1, board of directors.
Oh, well, that's bizarre. Okay. Everything's fine.
Okay, so everybody's on board. All right, number 2 or
No,
section 2.
Wait. Are we going to split the board elections?
Oh, yeah.
I highly recommend that we do not do that because it's so time consuming, but that's my 2 cents. We talked about it last time. It is so much work for the organization. It takes away from things that we can do. That's up to you guys. I would.
Work in terms of what, Christine?
What we talked about is the fact that there's constantly a nominating committee. It's about 90 days worth of work for a secretary to perform all the work to get together, to figure out if people are going to stay or go and who's the new committee. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I'm only giving you my 2 cents. We talked about it last time. I'm not in favor, but I'll go with the majority. I don't think we're a big enough club to need that. And who are you going to get rid of? Because you have to stagger. I think, Jenna, you can chime in about this, about some clubs do like the 3 board of directors and then the next year they do the officers, but that's not necessarily what you were thinking, correct?
Typically, it's split between officers, so 2 officer positions, or now in this case, adding in the 5th officer position, it'd be 5 officers positions, so you could split it 2 and 3, and then board members split it 2 and 1, or, and then the delegate gets added in there at some point with one of those. I mean, that's, some do, some don't. I mean, Allison brought up a good point about all of that, but I will say that has nothing to do with this section. So that goes down to the nomination committee, and when it's, that's where it would be addressed, is there. I just don't want to jump too far ahead in the CMB So that way we don't get hung up on something, you know what I mean, for too terribly long.
So we're still on section 2 officers. Where are we?
No, we're still on section 1, board of directors.
Section 1 board of directors. Okay.
Yeah, but if you
Okay.
look in here, it just says 2-year term, which is fine. Because it says as provided in Article 4. So
okay.
Article 4 is where we would address if we're splitting it or not splitting it.
Okay.
So if everybody's good, we can move on to section 2.
Mhm.
So, hey, I'm on a meeting. Ronnie just walked in. Sorry, and he's talking. I apologize. I'm like, hey. So, please continue. I apologize.
It's okay. Is everybody good with section 1? Other than the split the secretary position?
Yes, I'm good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So section 2 officers. This just breaks down what everybody's jobs are. Obviously, we would need to modify secretary, but let's just go through the first part. I would need to add in, obviously, recording secretary and corresponding secretary. So that verbiage would need to be changed. I'm just
So-
making notes, sorry.
Are we on section C? Or are we doing the whole thing?
No, we're doing section 2 of Article 3. The first paragraph says the club officers consisting of the president, vice president, I'll need to split the secretary, stating,
Okay,
right? Treasurer shall serve in their respective capacities, both with regard to the club and its meetings and the board and its meetings. Right? Anybody have any issues with that? I'm just adding in the splitting of the secretary. Okay, perfect. So A, anybody issues with the president's role description?
Nope.
I don't.
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, so B, the vice president.
No.
Nope.
Anybody else? We good? Okay, so then C, secretary. Obviously, we'll need to come up with 2 different descriptions for recording and corresponding, correct? Anything else I need to address?
Yes, you don't want. You get a list of the members. That this whole thing about you'll keep the role of the club with their addresses, fine. And you send them out each time it's revised. Not upon written request or once every club year.
Right. So you're saying the membership listing is sent out every time there is a change, whether somebody falls off or is added to it. The secretary, which will now be the corresponding secretary, will.
Oh, is that a
update-
corresponding?
I think so. I don't know. How do I know? I don't know what the
Well,
job-
Yes,
I
I
don't-
would say that's corresponding, not recording.
Corresponding. That's
Okay, well, That's part of my problem. I don't know how to divide the job.
I have to
Okay,
keep of,
just take that part out, Jenna.
Everybody on board with that?
yes,
Yep.
So I need to change it to state upon change, any changes?
hmm
Sure.
Upon any additions or deletions. Yeah,
right.
you got it.
Okay. Is that it? Other than separating it between recording and corresponding? No?
We're good. Let's roll.
Okay, so D, treasurer.
So the only thing I have here, well, I have two things here. And this goes back to the DPCA chapter club meeting that Eric and I went to. And during that meeting, we were told that the treasurer should send monthly reports to the president and the board.
Yeah,
And that a club audit of the books should be done annually, which could be either by an outside firm, or we could just have two members of the club sit down with the treasurer and go through the books just to make sure everything measures up.
That
Right.
is also an AKC recommendation, Amy, that every fiscal year or annual year as determined by the club, that two members at minimum review the books on an annual basis.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what I
so
just said.
far that I'm just saying that it's also an AKC recommendation. That's the only thing that I wanted to mention there. I think that we're in compliance with Lynn doing.
I give
record
a
every month.
I give a treasurer's report every single meeting of every month that we have.
Yes.
So there's a written record every month of our, physical, whatever we have. Now, also, anybody can request at any time, any board member, a written, I can send them I do have and still get a bank statement every month. So if anybody wants a copy of the bank statement, I am more than willing to send it to them at any time. All you have to do is let me know.
And
My comment was nothing, no reflection on you, Lynn. It was just something that I didn't know if
Oh,
it
no,
needed
no,
to be added to the position there. That's all.
I totally understand. Totally
Okay,
understand.
okay, cool.
And the only thing that I would like to see kind of clarified with this particular portion of the thing is that it says it's the very last sentence. It's that the club shall be insured in the amount through a type of policy. Now, we don't have any policy that covers the amount of money that we have in the treasury. We don't have that kind of money. We're not a parent club and we're not a all big club that we would have hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I really honestly don't think we need a separate policy,
So
for that
Lynn-
particular.
Lynn, do you want me to add into that what we talked about the other day? So this last sentence is speaking to E&O insurance, errors and omissions, and it's not really applicable to a chapter club. So I'm in agreement with her that sentence needs to be struck out of the description.
Did you have a conversation with Lane?
No, I said Lynn.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Is there anybody that disagrees?
no,
Okay.
Not me.
Okay, so are we good with the treasurer description then?
Yeah.
Well, I
I'm-
think we need to add what Amy said. It's in every single paper of the AKC.
So,
That at the year end, somebody, either we have an accountant go over the books, or two members are chosen and they go over the books with Lynn.
Do you want that in a C and B, or just throwing it out there? Do we want to do a fiscal responsibility policy? It could be a paragraph that says, you know, the Doberman Pinscher Club of Florida will comply, and two members will be voted on to review the books. Or if, you know, if members are not willing to step up, we'll have it reviewed by a CPA. I mean, we could do that in a separate policy. We could say, please see policy, blah, blah, blah. That's up to you guys.
so I am gonna interject.
Sure.
I'm literally reading the sample CMB from AKC, and it is verbatim what is in that paragraph, minus that last, what we've already decided, that last sentence. That's exactly what it says. So it doesn't say anything about having anybody come in and audit or do any of
No,
those things.
but the AKC does have a fiscal financial responsibility policy that I can send it. It's separate. That's why I'm saying, like, does it need to be in the CMB, or does it need to be in a policy? So I think there's 10 line items. We had talked about it. One of their suggestions, just to jog everybody's memory, was to have two members also oversee expenses and expense receipts. But we chose not to. We actually voted on it and talked about it at a board meeting where we were not going to take up time to review that. We trusted Lynn's process and oversight to that. So if we want to, we can review that policy that AKC has established, and we can put it into our own policy and not put it into the C&B.
I think we're covered because it says the book shall at all times be open to inspection by the board.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm
It's
good.
open open anytime, anybody.
I'm good. I'm good.
Would it be possible to just add a line? Because it says, like, the books shall always be open to inspection by the board, and a report shall be given at every meeting,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So it goes into all that, and then it says, and at the annual meeting, an accounting shall be rendered of all monies received and expended during the previous fiscal year. Could we just add at the end of that, a club audit of the books shall be done annually, whether by an outside service or two approved members of the club, something like that. And then that follows the recommendations of the DPCA and the AKC, but it says that it holds us accountable that we need to be doing that audit annually. That's my only thing.
Absolutely.
Well, when Lynn doesn't want, we trust Lynn explicitly, but when she doesn't want to do it, who knows?
Well, it's an opportunity for two people to sit down and enjoy Lynn's company and go through what the dog club spends money on.
I think it's great. I think it's a good idea. I'm with Amy.
Yeah, I agree with Amy. Just add the one sentence and you're completely covered and everything's in the light.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm good with that.
So what do you want me to add at the end of that sentence?
That a club audit of the books shall be done annually. And
By who?
then,
Does it matter?
well,
Either
the way
by-
that
I think it's two members or an
It,
outside party.
I'm reading Eric's notes here. It says, either by an outside service or two members of the club.
Okay, do you mind sending me that blurb? Do you mind?
No, I'll make a note of it here.
Okay.
The Scentwork Club makes
you.
a member be one of those people.
Yeah, and the whole context around that, to Amy's point, is there was a lot of clubs that had a lot of integrity related issues that they brought up at this meeting. So obviously we all trust what's going on in this club, but everybody that's on the board now
Oh,
is always going to be there, and you want to
Hey,
close that circle.
Believe me, I am all for whatever you guys want to do. I've told you a million times, everything's open. I'll send you a bank statement. Anytime you want to see anything, I'm there. Just got to tell me. So I'm fine with it.
Great. So everybody's good on that part. Sorry, I got to get back to ours, not AKC's. All right. So next is section 3, Doberman Pinscher, the delegate to the Doberman Pinscher Club of America.
Do we want to make that a voting position? I don't know what other chapter clubs normally do.
The chapter clubs in Dallas and New Jersey have it as we have it currently.
And so does Cavalier, non-voting. And the same, so non-voting but again, you know, if we were in the position, we could always make it a voting.
Eric, congratulations. You are now the recording secretary and the delegate.
That's funny.
Like he has time for recording.
I know, he's like my ass.
Yeah, definitely. Poor guy. He's like Silence of the Lambs over there.
Yeah, really. Good luck with that.
Eric just logged off.
Yeah.
I'm laughing
You wouldn't be though.
and crying at the same time.
Oh gosh.
So are we good then?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it should remain the same basically. None.
I think what Allison, if I may say this, what Allison brought up at our last session was that the delegate should be the alternate, meaning that if we lose somebody, the delegate moves into that role. And I remember, Eric, if I'm not mistaken, you said, well, I'll do it until you find somebody.
Yeah.
That's too much to actually put on somebody, I think.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And with adding the recording secretary thing, I don't think it's necessary. But that's just me. So if everybody's good, are we good to move on?
Good.
Okay. So section 4, vacancies.
I'm good. Allison's good. Getting the
Allison, what happened with that discussion on the alternate board member? I remember the emails about it. Was it
I just
when
thought
you
that we could have an alternate board member in case like where Anne resigned, that person just slides into that position. They are on all of the board phone calls or meetings. They don't get the vote unless they are put into the actual position. So they kind of have a heads up of what's already going on. And we're not kind of like just throwing someone in like we did to Jenna. Just here, you're now a board member, catch up. So it was just a suggestion.
Are there any other clubs that have alternate board members that we know of?
Not the Obedience Club, and not that I'm aware of. I think Allison, your Scent Work Club does.
We do, yeah. So we have 3 board members plus an alternate. Because, you know, a lot of those people are kind of older and, you know, they have issues and somebody might get sick or whatever and they're not able to do their position. So the other person slides in there.
I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad idea. I'm very much neutral on this. What I will say that it really is difficult to plan special board meetings with the group that we have here. It's difficult to take action with the group that we have here. And it's because we have lives, we're busy, emails, you know, there's responses to emails, and there might be 12 threads, and then one of us pops in on the 12th thread, right? Because we don't necessarily have time to read all of that stuff. It's not a bad idea, like I said, it's just challenging. One more individual becomes challenging.
Well, I mean, it would make sense if the delegate wanted to do that, Eric. But, you know, it's already involved in all the meetings anyway.
So the way we could do it is say that the alternate, the delegate is the alternate, but only for the board position, to where they're not being pulled into an officer position. Because not everybody has the time to be able to, you know, slide into recording or
Why are
corresponding.
we finding fault with the current process? I mean, when we needed individuals, what we did is we reached out to them. We reached out to Randy and we reached out to Jenna. What's wrong with that process? If we should lose somebody, and, you know, knock on wood, we don't. But what's wrong with the current process?
Nothing wrong with it, Christine. It's just making it the transition a little bit easier. These are 2 people that you just mentioned that had no background in what we were already currently doing. So we kind of threw them into it and was like, here, we're doing the CMB now, jump in. Whereas if someone had been part of it all along, they would already kind of know what was going on.
Right. Which is why I said board, just director position.
It's only a director position, not to jump into an officer position. It's an alternate board member.
I mean, the only difference would be in Eric's case is that he's able to vote at that point. Right? So it's not really jumping into anything else other than the correspondence that he's already a part of. And the meetings he's already a part of, right?
I
So
understand. I'm just saying that how long did it take us to get to this meeting? We tried like 3 times with just this group. You guys have to think about it from the people's perspective that are trying to schedule these meetings. It is not easy. It is not easy. And adding one more person that could be resistant to the meetings.
I think that's why
tough.
Allison said the delegate, right? Because the delegate's already part of the meetings. But they're only sliding into the director part of it if there's a vacancy automatically.
I'm good. Like I said, I'm just like, wow, we've tried a lot. We've tried to schedule 3 different meetings this month. And it is the 15th and we've accomplished 1.
Now that's really the truth.
That is the truth.
I know, that is the truth.
So it's
Right.
just hard. It's just hard. I'm not saying like
Right.
it's great when we get together. It's just hard.
But that's what takes that away, right? By making the delegate go into a vacant director position. Because they're already part of it anyway. So there's no additional person. I'm doing air quotes. I know you guys can all see me. Of that, right? But not putting them in the position where they have to take over an officer's position, because that's a lot more dedication.
It's only a what if something happens, like no one expected Anne to just quit on us. So, luckily we had voluntold Jenna she was doing this and she accepted.
I'm like I said, I'm good. I'm good.
So does everybody want to add that in or leave it the way it is?
I think Eric is the one that he's the delegate and he's carrying that torch. I think he's got a lot weighing on that. So Eric, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think what you were laughing about before is the right answer. I would have no problem jumping in, for however long period of time, but I still think there should be a search for a new member through the same means that you outlined before, where you just pick up the phone, call some new people. If that's for 1 meeting, great. If it's for 2 until you find somebody, or 3, that's fine too. But the delegate could temporarily fill that role until a new person is named.
And that is from the words of the mouth of the delegate. So that's the bare minimum. That's meeting us halfway, I think.
Eric, there could
Yeah,
be
I just wouldn't sign that person up, say like Anne resigns 2 months into a 2-year term. I just wouldn't sign that, whoever the delegate is, me or somebody else, up for a year and a half. Because I know that was something we talked about last time, but I think the search for the new person should begin immediately, and whenever that position's filled, then it'll go back to the new member.
I mean, all it is voting, right?
It's not. It's a lot of responsibility, right? Like look at everything that you're doing right now. Oh my gosh.
Well, no, it doesn't mean that you're taking over the committees or any of their volunteer work. It just means that you're there as a voting member. I mean, whoever's in charge of that committee, they've been put on by the board and by the membership, either or, right? So at that point in time, if that person leaves that position and they're no longer doing it, then a new committee member or a head would have to be established. That has nothing to do with being a board member.
I think that we're talking about 2 different things. The responsibility of a board member is not simply voting. It's attendance, projects, etc. And, participating in the meetings. You happened to volunteer for this exciting project that we're talking about. So, I would hope that we wouldn't have another big project like that for somebody, but I do think that there's a lot more involved than just voting. That's a responsibility there, but there's much more involved for a board member.
Okay. So what everybody wants to do is fine with me. We can table that for later as well, or we can just move on and leave it the way it is.
Or we could say that the delegate moves into the role of the board of directors should one terminate voluntarily or involuntarily until such board position can be filled.
I mean, but why? You guys found replacements for VP and board for in what, like 2 days? Essentially.
I don't know. It took me like a week to convince Randy.
I mean, it's not really like an exceptional amount of time to find somebody to place that role. And we weren't talking about officers, going into that role anyways, the alternate. It was only as a director. So in my mind, if nobody wants to do it, then great, just leave it the way it is. And you just recruit.
Okay, so let's just go around real quick. Lane, do you want to keep it as is? Allison, Lynn, Amy?
I think delegate should move in. This is Randy.
I think delegates should move in.
I think delegates should move in.
I do think that having the delegate move in makes the most sense, and it may or may not be for the remainder of the term.
Yes.
Okay, sounds like that's 2/3. So that's what we'll go with.
But only as a director position, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because to me, they're not doing any more than what they already are. It's just a voting capacity at that point versus non-voting. You're still attending all the meetings.
Right.
So what if
Okay.
that delegate chooses not to?
I mean, why wouldn't you? That the only difference literally is the fact that now you're moving into a board position and you have DPCA delegate position. And as a director, you're just there as a voting capacity. You're not taking over that director's obligations that they volunteered for.
Well, you could, being in two roles, you could restrict yourself from taking on additional projects or perhaps, being part of the show committee. It could inhibit that individual's ability to do other things based upon the time.
I mean, only if they volunteer to do so, though. Nowhere in the CMB does it state that a director has to do anything other than attend meetings. You don't have to volunteer to do anything. It just, we choose to, right?
In all roles, we choose to. Yes. I'm fine.
Correct.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I heard from the delegate himself, and I know what kind of role he has outside this organization, and it's a big role. And he's also a member and president of his HOA. That's another big role. So what
Right.
I'm saying is
I'm
that
just making it clear that there's no obligation other than you're just attending the meetings when you can attend the meetings. We've had, people not attend board meetings, right? So
I think
that's
asked and answered. We're good. Let's move on. We're good.
okay. All right. So Article 4, the club's fiscal year, annual meeting, elections, and official year. Section 1, the financial fiscal year begins the first day of January and ends on the last day of December. Any objections?
Nope.
Okay. And then annual meeting,
I think your no response is, means good. Let's roll.
Okay. Very good. Section 3, nominations.
Again, I think we're good, Jenna.
Okay.
This has been a long meeting. We might be losing some people. Understandably, right? It's just, it's a long meeting.
Yeah, I actually just want to see how everybody feels if we can maybe adjourn right now, because we still have a lot of stuff to go through. We've been on this for like 2.5 hours. Maybe we can reconvene at another date that we agree to.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Amy. Is, if we could just quickly discuss a date. I don't disagree.
Sure. Yeah.
Is anybody not available, like maybe Sunday evening? I know that that's not always, you know, from our Monday to Friday folks, that's not always pleasant, but maybe we can knock it off, or Monday night before the next general meeting. I don't know if that's possible. Let me hear your thoughts, pros, cons. Get bent, Tartar. We'll meet in March. I'm good either way.
I'm good for Sunday.
I'm good for Sunday.
I'm good.
Allison, Amy.
Should be okay.
Okay, Amy, what are your?
I'm good. I'm
Sorry,
good
I
for
lost,
Sunday. I would
lost
just,
my mute thing.
I'm good for Sunday. I just think it should be maybe a little bit earlier, so that way we don't get, you know, because
Or we
everybody's got to
limit
get
it.
up Monday morning. So
Yeah.
Yep,
maybe
yep.
like 4 o'clock or something. So that way you're not running into 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I work until 5, I think, on Sunday. Let me just verify that. 1 second.
I'll give you approval to knock off 15 minutes early.
Yeah, I'm 9 till 5.
Okay, so what do you
so
think?
we can start at 5. I'll try and get out a little early. Yeah.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Or do 5:30, so she has time to get home.
Yes, 5:30 or 6, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 5:30 on Sunday. Should we do a motion just to continue, just so
Yes.
we're in
Yeah, let's do that.
compliance? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I motion to continue to Sunday at 5:30.
I second it.
Motion
Great.
to
Allison,
Perfect.
could you say it again for the record, Allison?
motion to adjourn.
Lynn,
I second.
thank
I
you.
second.
Okay,
Awesome.
guys, till Sunday.
Okay.
Thank you for all the good dialogue. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, everybody have a good night.
You too.
Good
Bye.
night. Bye.